When I was 6 years old, I was walking up and down these same streets. It wasn't paved then, and I was selling boiled peanuts. So I started off my career with peanuts, and I'm still involved with peanuts.
In late September, Plains holds the annual Peanut Festival, and Main Street is suddenly crowded with people from all over. They come for the 5K, the excellent vendors, the museums, and a generally good time.
On behalf of the Better Plains Hometown Program, it's a real pleasure for me and all of our folks to welcome you to the 22nd Annual Plains Peanut Festival. Today is another great day in Plains, Georgia. It's a real pleasure for me to recognize some of the following people. First of all, let's give a big round of applause to the honoree of the day, the President, Jimmy Carter, and Miss Roseman, the First Lady.
Yes, Jimmy Carter is there, overlooking the street. People filled both sides of the road in anticipation of the Peanut Festival parade. But the parade cannot start until the arrival of Sam Shortline. After which, Jimmy Carter speaks.
How many of you would like to lead a long and happy and healthy life? Raise your hand. Eat peanuts. How many of you would like to lose weight? Raise your hand. Eat a few peanuts every day. How many of you would like to gain weight? Not very many. But if you want to gain weight, eat a lot of peanut butter ice cream.
Then the parade kicks off, starting with the Chief of Police.
Opening up our parade today is Chief David Johnson and the Plains Police Car.
Followed by others such as the Army Band,
They usually ride around in a pickup truck. Hey, they got something special.
and the Shriners.
Always proud to have them in Plains.
Then there's these guys.
They usually ride around in a pickup truck. Hey, they got something special.
The Rangers and volunteer staff of the parks and museums,
That's what makes that
and the reason people probably get into forestry.
Chesley Belcher is the U.S. National Forestry Queen, Hospitality Queen.
The awards for the 5K are handed out by Jimmy Carter himself. Plains Peanut Festival is always a good time. Throughout the year, in this case late summer, Sumter County is, for me, a quiet and peaceful place. A place of reflection and rejuvenation. Flat terrain and wide open spaces filled with farms, fields, and history. Crops are coming along, hopefully well, as this year has seen a lot of rain. Now meets yesterday, at the edge of some pastures as the forefathers' homes sit vacant. Places once warm and welcoming, now cold and silent, except for the sounds of nature steadily encroaching. But the land is very much vital and alive. These dirt roads crisscrossed the land and were once the main travel routes for the people of earlier decades, a mixed spiderweb of concrete and dirt connecting all parts of the land. There are old and sometimes mysterious roads here to destinations existing only in the past. I like to drive around and see the old homesteads. Some have weathered very well. Not far away, Sam Shortline runs her scenic route. The Shortline is a train hauling vintage passenger cars from Cordeal to Plains and Archery. Tickets will run you about $40 to $50. I have yet to take a ride, maybe an upcoming episode. Set aside a full day, however, it's an immersive experience. On Highway 19. It eventually leads to Smithville, but has points of interest along the way, some affected by recent widening of the road. There are many churches, but this one is special. This particular church was once known as Benevolence Church, and it was my mother's church. Today it serves a Latino congregation. Behind it is the aged cemetery of past parishioners. Many of these people were in the picture I just showed you. Some of them were my own people. I like to pay a visit now and then to pay my respects. Some are names I've heard often. Some unknown. Many of them you would never know are graves, except for the indentions in the ground. And too many of them are in a state of disrepair. Exploration is my favorite part. I am particularly attracted to these red clay roads along the pastures. You can linger for long periods of time without seeing a car. And if you look around carefully, sometimes you find the remnants of things whose purpose the imagination can only wonder at, looking at the context of the surroundings to try to guess what might have been here. Things I find particular joy in are the edges of fields and roads. Whereas fields are cleared for crops and roads are traveled and graded, along the edges can be found native flora and fauna. Here flowers and vines grow, giving shelter to wildlife, mostly ignored by man. For me, and maybe me only, these are places from an old children's book of poems, a portal to salt marshes and old gypsies, as they live on in the part of my mind that belongs to my youth. Down the road a ways is a place found on old maps, but this place has seen dramatic changes. I'm standing here beside the highway, a 4-lane. Off that way you can see railroad tracks. Isn't much to see. But years ago, this was a place called Sumter City. It was a small collection of wooden buildings, a store, hardware, whatever else you would have next to a railroad track. Well, the county decided to make this 2-lane road a 4-lane road, and Sumter City was up for the axe. Fortunately, a concerned citizen kept this place near to his heart, so he bought the buildings and had them moved to his property across the road. So Sumter City still stands, just not in its original place. On old maps, it is simply Sumter. Other structures stand where they were built. My Sidestep Adventures partner, Robert, suggested this may have once been more than just a house, perhaps an inn. It's possible, definitely an eye-catching design. Along this old road, the corn grows and the crops are watered by extensive irrigation systems. You see them in the fields everywhere here. Large elevated piping systems atop presumably motorized wheel platforms, which circle the fields spraying water, and often creating a picturesque mist. Sometimes the spray goes a little haywire. I had initially imagined deep blue skies and sunny days for this series, but it's been a rainy summer. Finally, the sun began to emerge. New farms sit next to old ones on these back roads, and neat corners I stumble across in my explorations, communities I know nothing of. Old chimneys and a few timbers are the last remaining supports for some of these old homes. A short connecting road between two fields still holds some of its historical treasure. I stop for a closer look. The tin roof is starting to go, and the vegetation is doing its natural thing. A hint, a shadow of days gone forever. The ditch shows no point of entry for wagon nor car, uninhabited for years, sitting and waiting for its family to come home from the fields, upon high embankments covered with the thickets characteristic of these areas. The building of the 4-lane between Americus and Smithville brought other changes as well. Not only was Sumter City moved in order to save it, but some roads were left behind. This road here is practically a private drive. People live on it. It's a quiet street. But this actually used to be the road between Americus and Smithville. Disused roads, a pleasant side effect of an ever-changing landscape. Country roads lead to all manner of treasure for the weekend excursion. Lebanon Church was abandoned in the early 90s when the road became too uncertain for the congregation in favor of building the new church elsewhere. But it doesn't sit completely alone. It isn't a stretch to imagine this road when it's raining heavily. It was a little hairy driving down it dry in the Mustang. The height of the banks on the sides suggest many gradings over the years. Just around the bend is Carter's Fish Pond Road, a beautiful stretch of classic Sumter County road. Heavy equipment has been through clearing the road after recent weather. But the fields are sunny, the crops grow, and the land carries on, offering its honest tranquility. The cotton is coming along well and resembles the snow that hasn't completely melted. From one end to the other, Sumter County is a place to visit. A county with a history you can experience today for a little gas money. From plains to the wide open fields to the upcoming Americus with its dining, shopping, and historic Windsor Hotel. Everyone sees the world through some filter. This is through mine. A county full of ghosts and experiences, and more than a few old dirt roads for me to walk down.